Hi, everyone, and thank you for joining our January California Brokers Business Accelerator on NAR's Clear Cooperation Policy, hosted by our Temecula broker, Michelle Beeson, but also featuring Tom Bullock and Ryan Rosas. As you know, every month we have a special promotion where you can receive fun gifts and promotions from Allison James just for referring an agent to us. Our current promotion to kick off the new year is that you have a chance to earn $30 in cash for each agent you refer to us, up to $210. In addition to receiving $30 in cash, you will also have one entry for each referral into our drawing to win a MacBook Air. This promotion will end on March 31st, and we will draw a winner for the MacBook Air on April 1st. Please keep in mind that you have to have spoken with the agent about joining Allison James, and we must be able to speak to them about the opportunity to join our company. To refer an agent to us anytime, please go to Allison James University and click on the Referrals tab. From there, you will find a form that you can fill out with the agent's information. Today's webinar, like always, is sponsored by our preferred lender, Movement Mortgage. With that being said, let's go ahead and get started with our California Brokers Business Accelerator. Remember, if you have any questions during this presentation, you can type them in the chat box on your Zoom control panel, and we will do a Q&A with our brokers at the end of the presentation. I will now pass it over to our brokers, starting with Michelle. Good morning, Michelle.
Good morning, Tori. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for the opportunity to present NAR's Clear Cooperation Policy today. And I also want to welcome Tom Bullock and Ryan Rosas onto the webinar. We're going to get right into it. Effective January 1st, NAR has passed a policy regarding your time frame for putting properties into the MLS. So we've been getting a lot of questions. I'm sure Tom and Ryan both have been getting a lot of questions because everybody thinks now we have to put things in the MLS within 24 hours. It's actually a business day. So I want to make sure that you guys fully understand NAR's policy, how it affects you, how it affects your boards, all of that, because it's a policy that went into effect January 1st. However, all of our boards have till May 1st of 2020 to implement the policy. So most of the boards have not implemented it yet. They're figuring out the semantics. They're figuring out what they need to do to be compliant, the options they can give you. So most of us, it does not affect yet. I understand there's been a few boards across the nation. And by the way, this is a nationwide policy. So for those of you who are licensed in multiple states, this applies to you no matter what state you're licensed in. I understand there's been very few boards so far that have implemented the policy. Most of our boards are working through the details so they can properly educate us when the time comes. But in the meantime, I want to make sure you guys understand what NAR's stand is regarding this policy. So I'm going to read the Clear Cooperation Policy verbatim. It's very short, so it won't be too boring. Within one business day of marketing a property to the public, the listing broker must submit the listing to the MLS for cooperation with other MLS participants. Public marketing includes, but is not limited to, flyers displayed in windows or on yard signs, digital marketing, which means your Facebook, your website, no IDX feeds, any broker websites, digital communication marketing, so like email blasts, sharing it with other brokerages outside via email is public marketing. Any private networks, so if you're part of like Young Professional Network or a private Facebook group, you cannot share it on those. That's considered public marketing until you're ready to list it on the MLS. And then basically any applications available to the general public. So this only affects, it's important to note that this only affects residential listings right now. The policy, that's all it affects. So it does not apply to commercial, does not apply to your rentals or new construction with multiple units. So it just applies to your normal residential listing. One thing I want to specify is the one business day. So basically one business day means that weekends and holidays are exempt. So it is a business day, not a proper day. And what triggers this policy, guys, is the minute you market it to the public. It is not when you have your listing signed, your listing agreement signed. It applies the minute you market it to the public. The second you throw a sign in that yard, you've got a day, a business day, to put your listing in the MLS. The second you post it on Facebook, even if it's a coming soon or something like that, you've got a day to get it in the MLS. Doesn't matter if your listing agreement was signed 3 months ago. It's the time that you have to put it in the MLS after it's been marketed to the public. Now, all MLS boards have different rules regarding the time frame of putting it in the MLS when you've got the contract signed. What triggers your MLS rules, which you need to be familiar with, is the listing agreement being signed. Most of them are 48 hours, 24 hours. This does not affect that requirement. That requirement is still in play. So all boards have their own kind of form that excludes it from the MLS for whatever reason, whether it's not ready to be listed on the MLS yet or what have you. There are exclusion forms from the day that you have the listing agreement signed, and that still is in effect. You can still use the exclusion forms for that. What triggers this policy, again, and I know I've said it several times, but I want to make sure you guys understand it, is that marketing to the public aspect of it. So you can't throw your sign in there. You can't even have your spouse who's not licensed say, hey, by the way, this house is going to be for sale pretty soon. That's still you marketing to the public. One thing that is exempt from this, and I got this straight from NAR themselves, is if you've got a slew of clients that you're working with and you have, say you've got 10 clients that might like this new listing that you've got coming up, and you've already got an existing relationship with them, you're not posting the property on anything, you're not putting a sign in, and you get this great listing and you pick up the phone and you directly contact your client and say, hey, I've got this new listing coming up that you might want to take a look at, that is not marketing to the public. So that's good news for us. Everything else pretty much falls into the marketing to the public umbrella. So let me see what else I have before we go into specifics. So you also can't, like, say you've got a friend who works for another brokerage outside of Allison James, and you call them, that's marketing to the public. You say, hey, you might have a client for this. That is now marketing to the public. So you have to understand, the best way to think about it is, if you're doing anything that opens up knowledge of this listing to anyone other than your clients who you've been working with and you can call directly, that is considered marketing to the public. It's not really as confusing as it seems. So if you're making that property available to anybody that you do not have a current relationship with as far as clients, or to any outside broker outside of Allison James, you are now marketing to the public. Now you can do specific office exclusive listings. There's so say your client's going through a divorce and they just don't want to be out there. They don't want their privacy impinged on. You can do an office exclusive listing. Now, every board has different policies regarding that, and this is something that we as the brokers, before our boards implement it, are going to have to sit down and discuss what kind of form is going to need to be created to do this office exclusive listing. But what that means basically is, if you have a listing and you share it within your brokerage of Allison James, and the key being that it has to be the same broker number, license number, DRE license number. Anything outside of our DRE license number, from what I've been told, is considered outside marketing. As long as we have the same umbrella license number, you can market it within to your fellow agents under your company only. That is considered an office exclusive listing. That is the one way that we can that's one way that your sellers can maintain their privacy, if that's something that they truly want to do. So hopefully that's clear. Again, if you have questions on anything I've gone through, please feel free to put that in the chat. But we are going to go over a little more specific scenarios right now. So basically, all Realtor Association MLSs have to adopt this policy. It is not optional in any way, shape, or form. They have, again, till May 1st of 2020 to adopt this policy. Every single board out there has to. I did talk about the office exclusive, but there is no wiggle room in there for a seller who doesn't want to do an office exclusive to say, oh, I don't like that policy. I don't want you putting it in the MLS within 1 business day. They have to put it in within 1 business day. If a sign's put in there, if a flyer's stuck in the window, if you talk about it at an MLS board meeting, anything that is now marketing to the public, and the seller can't opt out for you doing that unless they want to do an office exclusive listing, which means it's not going to be marketed outside of your specific broker whatsoever. And what that means is they're going to probably be missing out on getting the most for their property because they're not putting it on the open market. So again, that form that is created needs to specifically go over the pros and the cons of not putting your property in the MLS. That's something that we'll be creating for you guys so we remain compliant with NAR's policy and with our board's policy, whatever that ends up being. There may be specific statuses, for instance. We'll go over this right now. Some boards, unfortunately not ours, hopefully they'll do it, have a coming soon status. And what that means, and it works perfectly with this new policy, because what it means is you can say that something's coming soon, but it's not being shown at that time, and that doesn't accumulate your days on market. For the MLSs out there that have implemented this, it just sits there. So if you stick your sign in the window while you're waiting for photos to come back, or your sign in the yard, and you put it in coming soon, you've now complied with that policy, even though it's not quite ready to be shown. So even though you're waiting on your photography, or you're waiting for the sellers to declutter, whatever that may be, that now applies to the policy. So for those of you who like that idea, I think it's important to reach out to your boards and say, hey, this is a great idea. We have a coming soon. It's putting it out there. It's making it very clear that it's not ready to be shown. You have now complied with NAR's clear cooperation policy, so you can put your sign in the yard and get that done. And you're good to go. And no days on market accumulate, because, hey, let's be honest, that's the main reason we don't want our listings in the MLS when they're not ready to be shown, because those days on market accumulate, and that could be an issue, as far as valuing. So for those of you who don't have that with their boards, I suggest you reach out to your board and discuss the fact that you would love to have that. I think is a great option for us.
Michelle, if I could just cut in here.
Yeah, please.
Keep in mind, boards may adapt a different course of action, how they would choose to enforce this. So it's really important that you check with your board to see what their policy is going to be going forward, starting in May, because you could call one board and get one policy that they're following, and call another board, because I know some of us belong to more than one board, and get a completely different policy. So, again, like Michelle said, check with your board before going too much farther with this. Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, absolutely. And the main reason for doing this is so you guys are, because we're already getting questions, we've got agents that are under the impression that this policy is in effect right now. And while technically it is, it's just a policy that NAR has put in place, and the enforcement is being done locally with your boards. And most boards are not quite yet ready, but it also doesn't mean that on May 1st, that's when it takes effect. If our board calls us, or lets us know next month that, hey, we've adopted the policy, it's in effect, you guys need to be ready to do it, because they're enforcing it, not NAR. So the fines are going to be imposed by your local board. So you guys need to keep on top of checking your board's websites, blogs, giving them a call. For instance, like our CRMLS I spoke to, they are not even close to adopting the policy yet. They're still going over all of the scenarios and all of that. So Again, this is just to let you guys know what the policy is, what is coming down the pike, but it does not mean you have to follow it right now. And it just means you need to be more vigilant to pay attention to your board's announcements when they're going to take effect. So we already talked about the meaning of one business day. I had that down here on my notes. So again, weekends and holidays are exempt. So if let's just say for last weekend, we had a holiday on Monday. So if my sign went in one of my listings on Friday, I had till Tuesday to get it in the MLS. So again, there's a lot of scenarios that are going to be board specific, but let's just say we have a brokerage that has an exempted listing. You're going to need to check with your board because your NAR rules also, especially if you're in a non-disclosure state, your NAR rules also require you to put sales information in the MLS, even for exempted listings. So that's another question for your board about that. If you're one to have something that's, if you're going to have an office exclusive, make sure you ask your board when this is implemented, whether or not you have to put the sales info in the MLS. More than likely you do. Let's see, we talked about the coming soon status already. So when we're talking about the MLS specifically, I want to make sure you guys know what your policy is regarding the time frame from when you have a listing signed. If it's not excluded, and most MLSs have their own exclusion form, then you have a certain amount of time to get your listing in the MLS regardless of this policy. Again, this policy applies specifically to marketing to the public. And I want to make sure everyone understands what marketing to the public means. I think I went over it. Again, you can directly contact your clients, but the second you directly contact an agent outside of your brokerage, that is considered marketing to the public. Let me see. I'm just looking at my notes. I'm sorry. I have a lot of notes here. You don't necessarily, this doesn't apply to, just in case anyone wanted to know, it does not apply to your IDX display. All boards have a option that you don't have to put things in the IDX, the IDX feed or push it out there to all of those sites. Most boards all the boards I know of have that option where you can opt out of that. That's one way to properly market your clients' listings, by putting it in the MLS, but still respecting the privacy where they don't have their address going out to the general public, which means they're going to have a bunch of drive-bys or people, stopping by or knocking on the door, how those things happen. So, and again, you need to check with your local board to find out when you have a client that doesn't mind it being in the MLS being marketed to us brokers, but they really don't want it broadcast out to the entire world on all of those websites and IDX feeds. This policy does not prohibit office exclusives. Again, office exclusives are listings that are only marketed within your specific brokerage. And if there's a question on that, it's got to be under the same broker number. That is what basically determines what an office exclusive is. I know I touched on this before, but private listing networks, private Facebook pages, private board groups like Young Professional Network, that is considered marketing to the public. So you can even stand up. Even I know some of our title companies have happy hours where everyone goes there and starts talking about their listings. If you go to one of these happy hours and talk about this listing, guess what? You have now just marketed it to the public. So what does that mean? It means you have one business day to get this listing into the MLS. We discussed coming soon or delayed showing listings. That's something that needs to be adopted by your board. If your board has a coming soon status or a delayed listing status that doesn't accumulate days on market but let you put it in the MLS, that is 100% being compliant to this new policy. And then every listing, our broker has to be turned in according to this policy unless it's an office exclusive. our compliance is, so the enforcement is done on a local level. Very important for y'all to understand that. NAR is not going to be going after you. What does that mean? It means that just like their compliance is mostly done now, it's probably going to be other agents seeing a sign, seeing it's not in the MLS, and if it's not in within that day, they're going to be ratting you out. So let's just stay compliant and follow the rules. Life's so much easier when we do that.
Yeah, that's this is Tom again breaking in.
Yeah.
That's really important, because that's exactly who's going to enforce this. Your competitors, your other agents from other brokerages. And don't think for a minute they're not driving around the streets in your neighborhood and trying to take listings or get listings. So if there's anything that is not compliant, they will be quick to contact the board and file a grievance. So keep that in mind. Just follow the rules, so that way there's no problems. Okay, Michelle.
Yeah, exactly. And that's basically all I have regarding the policy. We do have one question that I'll answer. So Steve asked, what if you have another agent calling your client, telling them about a pocket listing? And yes, that is, well, if it's your client, we don't know that they don't have them in their database as well. Let's be honest on it. If they have them in their database and they called them directly about a listing, as of right now, it's perfectly fine, because this policy isn't in effect, especially for our area yet, Steve. And I have a feeling it won't be in effect until May with our board. Maybe the month before, but probably not till May. But yeah, that would, unless they have them in their database, and if they could prove it, that's direct marketing. But if they called just anybody outside of their database, then that would be marketing to the public. Ryan, I guess we can't hear Ryan.
Hear me?
I barely heard you right there, Ryan.
Don't know why.
You're super quiet, so yell.
Don't know why, but it's important to know that your local boards are the ones determining what the fine will be as well. So if you are a member of boards or multiple boards, you'll want to know how much each one of those boards will fine you if you violate this policy.
Absolutely. All the enforcement's done by our board. And again, some of us belong to different boards. You know, we've got some in even in different regions, especially with me, because I border San Diego. We've got people that belong to one main board here, and there's 4 to choose from, and then they belong to one of the San Diego boards. So that just is an added responsibility for you all who belong to multiple boards to know the rules for each board. You need to be familiar with this. Now, I would hope and I assume that when each board adopts these policies, they're going to have the proper announcements that you guys can get in, you know, that you will receive, and they'll have webinars hopefully going over the policy and what their rules are. You know, we'll be diligent on our end to keep track of them and let you guys know when there's educational resources out there available to for your specific boards, but that's a responsibility of you guys more than anything. So if you want to call your boards and say, hey, any idea when this policy is going to be implemented? And, you know, the fines could be crazy. We have some crazy fines with our boards, and they could be small. I know there's some boards that have adopted it that'll give you a slap on the wrist one time. Some probably won't. So very important for you guys to know that.
And as we get closer to May and the boards start releasing what their individual policies will be and how they'll be implemented, they'll release information on that will be available to all of us. So like Michelle said, we'll stay on top of it and keep you informed as we're informed.
Absolutely. I think we've answered all the questions so far. We can stay on for a little while longer if y'all need it. And remember, these are recorded. So you'll have access to this recording and all of our California Business Broker Accelerator recordings on your agiuniversity.com, you know, login, and it's under learning, right, Tori? Is that what?
Yeah, I'll actually just show you guys real quick while we're waiting to see if any more questions come up. On Allison James University, as soon as you guys log in, it should take you straight to your dashboard. And under the Learn section here, At the very bottom of this Learn section, you're going to see a tab that says Broker Roundtable, and it's going to take you to the California Broker Roundtables, and it'll take you to a page of all of our past roundtables with our California brokers, and then within 48 hours of this one, this will be on this page as well. So you guys can bookmark this page, or you can always email us at support@agicorporate.com if for some reason you can't find it, but it will be right here for you. It doesn't look like we have any other questions, which I always think is a good thing. No questions.
I think so, yeah.
We covered just about everything. So we had a really good turnout for this one, which makes me really excited. So thank you everyone so much for joining us on this month's California Brokers Business Accelerator. And of course, thank you to all of our brokers for all of your wonderful insight. And a special thank you to Michelle for organizing today's topic and leading today's presentation. Thanks again, everyone, for joining. And I hope you all have a wonderful week. Bye, everyone.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.